I'm Jen Vellenga, and this is the DYBP podcast. This is where you get advice and courage to ditch your backup plan. Today's episode is just me on ditching self-doubt and finding your belief systems. You've heard of imposter syndrome, haven't you? The phrase, I believe, was coined in the late 1970s. It's not a psychological disorder, but it can interfere with your psychological feeling of well-being. If you don't know what it is, it's the feeling that others might find out you're a fraud. You doubt your skills and talents, and you believe that your achievements were all because of luck, and you don't deserve your successes. In a review article from the International Journal of Behavioral Science, it was revealed that 70% of all people experience these feelings in every profession. Imposter syndrome leads to fear of failure, anxiety, and dissatisfaction with life. On my Facebook community group, I posted a link to the Imposter Syndrome test through psychtest.com. It's kind of a fun test to take to see where you fit on the spectrum and how much imposter syndrome you feel typically. But it's not inherently self-damaging or self-destructive. Anyone who can't internalize their own successes can fall victim to imposter syndrome, according to psychologist Audrey Irvin. It's normal to experience doubt, but don't let it control your actions. In a research article in 2011 called The Imposter Phenomenon by Jeruwan Sakulku and James Alexander, those who experience imposter syndrome limit the acceptance of its success as an outcome of one's own ability. 6 areas were identified with imposter syndrome: the imposter cycle, which I'll get into in a second, the need to be special or the very best, and the need to feel super. These are impossible standards. The fear of failure, denial of competence, and discounting praise, fear of guilt about your own success. Not all of these areas are found in all people, but most people with imposter syndrome have at least 2. So the imposter cycle looks like this. You are assigned an achievement-related task. Anxiety, self-doubt, and worry causes you to either procrastinate or over-prepare. If you over-prepare, you complete the task, you'll feel some kind of relief. But if you get positive feedback, you're very likely to attribute that to hard work and effort and not your own abilities, discounting the success, which then leads to the cycle of perceived fraudulence and increased self-doubt, possibly depression and anxiety. Similar cycle with procrastination. There's some anxiety, self-doubt, and worry when you are assigned a task. You procrastinate, which leads you to a frenzied preparation, and then the completion gives you some relief. If positive feedback is given, you are more likely to attribute it to luck and not your own achievements. And you get positive feedback, which you discount, and again leads to more perceived fraudulence, increased self-doubt, and maybe depression and anxiety. Some of this comes into belief about mechanics of success. Do you believe success is related to effort or to luck or to your own skill and talent? Overwork is a common pattern for those who have imposter syndrome, and it's a hard habit to break if you believe it will result in failure. Imposters are high achievers who also make unreasonably low assessments of their performance. They can become overwhelmed, disappointed, and consider themselves failures. Success does not mean happiness always for imposters. Especially if success is unusual among people in their family, they can feel less connected and more distant if they receive some success, guilt over being different, which then could lead to levels of rejection. In a research article in 2020 called Prevalence, Predictions, and Treatments of Imposter Syndrome, a Systematic Review, Dr. Dina Bravata, Dr. Sharon Watts, and Dr. Heather Hag defined those with imposter syndrome as individuals who are high-achieving, who despite their objective successes fail to internalize their accomplishments, and have persistent self-doubt and fear of being exposed as fraud or an imposter. They dismiss their own competence and replace that competence with feelings of inadequacy. I'm not an expert here. I've just read a few articles and I'm synthesizing the information for you. I highly recommend that you look at my show notes and go to some of those articles I've mentioned. In the book called The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women by Valerie Young, she defines the different kinds of imposter syndrome. She also indicates that you should acknowledge your doubts and put them into perspective. Does this thought of self-doubt help or hinder you? Imposter syndrome is highly correlated with perfectionism. So if you can value constructive criticism for all and a culture where asking for help is okay, this leads towards less imposter syndrome. So what this all comes down to is the majority of people across all populations feel some kind of imposter syndrome. The way to overcome it is, first of all, to recognize it. Is your feeling around doubt in yourself helping or hindering your movement forward? When it comes to arts and entertainment, especially in this moment in time when so few people are working at their craft, that doubt can really creep in. If you're not spending the time day in and day out collaborating and working with others, which is the cornerstone of what we do in arts and entertainment, I think you first have to recognize the moment that we're in and try to let that go. And the other thing that's empirical knowledge that I've learned just from teaching for 20 years and interviewing my guests is that belief is such a big part of success. So many times I have asked a guest, did anyone in your family have a career in arts and entertainment? And they say no. So why would they delve into one of the riskiest businesses without anyone's footsteps to follow in? Most of the time, my guests say someone believed in them. It's most often a parent. And I did a little impromptu survey a month ago or so asking the members of my community group on Facebook who was their superfan. And most of them said a parent. A superfan to me is someone who is embarrassingly supportive of you. They probably know nothing about your profession, but they support you anyway. These superfans are extremely important to your well-being. You need to learn how to use them. When you're feeling really down and full of self-doubt and as if you are an imposter, you need to call that superfan. Tell them that they are your lifeline. Get them to tell you how much they believe in you. It doesn't matter if they know the specifics of what you do. They are the ones who are going to believe unconditionally. So my son plays baseball, and I like to think of myself as an unconditional supporter. But I would never give him advice about baseball. I know nothing about it except what I observe. On the other hand, when you're an actor, it's a little bit of a challenge because acting is reflecting human nature, and everybody is human. Everybody has advice for you. I guess we have those armchair athletes as well, same kind of thing. Someone watches an athlete and gives advice on how they could have done it better. But because people attend the movies and watch television shows and they're human beings, they always have advice for you without any skill to back it up. So make sure you recognize who those people are and dismiss the advice. Find your superfan. Let them brag on you and give you support. Let them believe in you. You need that person when you're down. You should also find the person that's going to tell you the truth, but also believes in you. You'll know the time that you need each of these people. Sometimes you just need the cheerleader and the champion of your work. Other times you just need someone to tell you the truth. I'll give you an example. One of my guests, Grace Douglas, told me about an audition she had when she was a student, and I don't think we talked about this on the episode, but you should still go listen to Grace Douglas. She's episode 9. She went in for the audition and she tanked. It just was a terrible audition. Her peers were not in to see the audition. She left the room and told them how horribly she did. They all boosted her ego and told her it couldn't have been horrible. They were sure she was wrong. They were sure it was fine. She was overreacting, and she was frustrated with that feedback. She didn't want them to be super fans. Throughout the learning process, she wanted some validation that she, in fact, tanked and what she could do to learn from that. So she came to my office, and before she can even get a word out, I looked at her and said, "What happened?" And I think that was really validating for her, for somebody who was in her circle, who understands the skills she was trying to learn at the time, to be able to say to her, "Yes, I recognize that that was not your best work." That can be very validating from someone who is knowledgeable in the profession. But be careful of taking that kind of feedback from somebody who doesn't know your training, your skill, your specialty. If you are working in a digital medium, which so many of you are right now, be really careful of those who don't understand the digital medium. This is an okay boomer moment. Do you know what I'm talking about by that? Those of you who are millennials or Gen Z, the baby boomers who may not completely understand the digital age, and you're creating on these platforms, they dismiss that as something that is fluff and not skillful in some way. Don't pay attention to that advice too much. There's a bit of a generational gap between what's going on. Not for everyone, but certainly for some people. So make sure your superfan isn't dismissing the platform you're using to share your specific talents and skills. Another story for you. I had a student come to my office several years ago. It was in the summertime. There was nobody around. This prospective student came to my office alone without any family members and said, "I'm going to be a movie star." I said, "What have you done so far? Have you been in any plays in high school?" "No." "Have you done any community theater?" "No." "Is there anything that you've done in acting so far, or are you just beginning?" "I'm just beginning, but I read this book called The Secret." "Have you read it?" "Yes, I have read it." He said, "The secret tells me if I just think about it all the time, I will become a movie star." And I said, "I think that that's a great belief system, but you need some understanding of the profession and some skill to back it up." And he said, "Yeah, I want to be a theater major." So I laid out the coursework for him, and he said, "I just want to take the acting classes." Well, the long and short of it is he eventually dropped out after only just a class or two because he was certain that The Secret was going to make sure that he became an actor. Now, that kind of delusional belief, read The Secret all you want to. I'm all for the power of positive thinking, but you need to have something to back it up. So here's my task for you this week. If you start to feel imposter syndrome taking over, identify it and ask yourself, is it helping or hurting you? Then I want you to try your best to let go of those feelings of self-doubt. If you can't do that, call your superfan. That means you have to identify who that person is. Call them. Let them champion you for a little while. And then finally, believe in yourself. Fall asleep at night thinking about something that you've accomplished and own that success. Think about the ways in which you made it happen, that it wasn't only luck, that it wasn't only hard work, but that you yourself were able to achieve something because of your skill, your intelligence, your talent, you, completely you. Believe in yourself. There's so much rejection and so many times that you will feel like you are not enough in an arts and entertainment profession. You have to ultimately be the one that recognizes your ability, your success. I want you to own it. That's my advice for this week. I'm back next Monday with an interview with my dear friend, colleague, actor, director, choreographer, and educator, Jerry J. Cranford. Thanks for listening. You are enough.